In this meeting of the Williamsburg-James City County School Board, can I have a member certified closed session, please?
Mr. Chair, I certify that to the best of each member's knowledge, the Williamsburg-James City County School Board, while in closed session, discussed only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements as stated in Virginia law, and that only such public matters as were identified in the motion convening a closed session were heard, discussed, or considered.
Thank you, Ms. Ortega. Is there a second?
Second.
Oh, wow. Okay. I'm giving that to Ms. Hunley. That was a four-way, I think. Thank you. Ms. Aller.
Mrs. Ortega.
Aye.
Mrs. Young.
Aye.
Dr. Beers.
Aye.
Ms. Cook.
Aye.
Hummel.
Aye.
Mrs. Hunley.
Aye.
Mr. Dowell.
Aye. All right. And if I can have a motion to approve the agenda, unless there's a motion to amend it.
Yeah. Mr. Chair, thank you. I would like to move to approve the agenda, but add the addition of item 7.01, discussion of the Williamsburg-James City County joint contract, Williamsburg-James City County School joint contract, and then move all the subsequent items down one number, please.
Can you read that motion one more time for me?
Yes, 7.01, discussion. It would be under information and discussion items, WJCC schools joint contract.
WJCC Schools Joint Contract. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Hummel. Is there any discussion? Ms. Cook?
Yeah.
And then Ms. Young?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'd just like to explain my request on behalf of all of the colleagues to consider adding 7.01, and I have two reasons. First, I think most time sensitive is timeline. The contract requires a supermajority for budget votes, and we have a budget vote coming up in December. And so we need to figure out how to operationalize that, and so we need to discuss the process of that. So we only have 2 months between now and then, and so as I understand how this board works, in October it should be discussed and recommended by policy committee, and then to come to us, this board, in November so that we can put it on a work session and then a action item at the subsequent meeting, so that in December when the CIP budget comes, we're ready to roll. So that's number one. Number two is legal clarity. I think we need to seek legal clarity, and there are two aspects of legal clarity. The first, in no particular order, has to do with the amendment. Our attorney offered us something to consider. The school contract originally was between 4 bodies, 2 school boards and 2 localities, and sometime in the 1980s or 90s, that those amendments to the contract started to happen just between the 2 localities. And so she suggested that we take a look at that sort of housekeeping matter, and just since we've been alerted to the issue, I don't think we should ignore it. I think we should discuss it and see what our options are to explore that and look forward to that housekeeping matter in the future, whether that means becoming part of the school contract or formally ceding that right to the localities. And then the other legal clarity piece has to do with the Constitution of Virginia. And our lawyer has advised that the contract may not be constitutional.
If I can stop you for a second, that was privileged and confidential information that she gave to the board.
So no, it wasn't. Everything that is labeled from our attorney is labeled as privileged and confidential?
That in particular was. Yes, ma'am.
So I took an oath to swear to support the Constitution of both the U.S. and the Commonwealth of Virginia to hold this seat, and the attorney has advised us that there's an issue that may require further legal exploration, and so I think it's incumbent upon us to determine how to grapple with that. So again, back to timeline and legal clarity, I think we need to discuss this.
Ms.
So
Young?
that's why I'm asking.
Mr. Chair, I would like the board to vote on this.
Okay.
A person-by-person vote, please.
Yes, ma'am.
Are you calling the question?
No, not, Ms. Ortega wants to talk, but after that, yes.
We will do that. Yes, Ms. Young. Ms. Ortega?
I would suggest that a closed session with our attorney present would be a better place and venue and manner to have that conversation.
Thank you, Ms. Ortega.
Have we gotten legal advice that it's a closed session topic? It's a public.
It is privileged and confidential, and you waive privilege if you we can't have the conversation without discussing what was in a memo that was labeled privilege and confidential, and we waive.
But the contract is a public document.
But we,
It was drawn in a closed setting with city, county attorneys, who, by the way, would not discuss it with you or I, Ms. Cook, in a public meeting without their attorneys present. And they were not willing to do that publicly.
Mr. Dowell, I have a different perspective on that, but it's a public document, and so the reason, anyway.
It does say privileged and confidential for the school board. Is there any other discussion around this? Okay, Ms. Aller?
Ms. Cook,
Aye.
Ms. Hummel,
Aye.
Mrs. Hunley,
Aye.
Mrs. Ortega,
no.
Mrs. Young,
No.
Dr. Beers.
No.
Mr. Dowell.
No. Can I have a motion on the agenda as presented?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Thank you, Ms. Ortega. Is there a second? Thank you, Dr. Beers. Ms. Aller?
Mrs. Ortega,
Aye.
Mrs. Young,
Aye.
Dr. Beers,
Aye.
Ms. Cook,
No.
Ms. Hummel, Mrs. Hunley,
Aye.
Mr. Dowell.
Aye. All right, let's move on to item 4.1, announcements and superintendent's report. Dr. Herron?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On Thursday, August 25th, Jamestown High School had the honour of hosting four-star General Paul Funk for a visit. General Funk met with the football team and shared insights learned over his 4 decades of service. He challenged the team with the same question he makes himself every day. How can I make my organisation, my teammates and myself better? The team presented the General with some mementos, including a game ball and helmet, which he was very quick to try on, as you can see in the photo. Many thanks again to General Funk for visiting our students, for serving our community, and in particular for serving our country. I was incredibly inspired by his visit and his words of wisdom. The 2022-23 school year is off to a wonderful start, and we are so pleased to have students and staff back in our buildings. Take a look at these scenes from the first week of school. Thank you, Mr. Chair. That concludes my report for this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Herron. Are there any board members with reports? All right, I just wanted to say that it was really a fantastic opportunity to see a 4-star general in our own backyard encouraging our own football team at Jamestown. And I think one of the first things we noticed immediately was his infectious energy. And he's a 4-star general. It was just amazing to see his enthusiasm for life and for encouraging young people. So I really appreciated him and his whole entourage taking time out of their busy schedule to be here in Williamsburg. Let's move on to item 5.1, public comments. Do we have any speakers today?
We do not have
No
any
speakers
cards.
today. Okay. All right, I hope we didn't run them off with a late start to our meeting. We always welcome our public to come and speak. Item 6.1, review of preliminary financial reports and end-of-year spending plan, June 2022. Dr. Heron?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Ewan's going to present the proposed financial and year-end spending plan this evening and the financial report. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Heron. Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the board. This evening, I will be presenting to you our preliminary financial status as of June 30th and the proposed year-end spending plan for fiscal year 2022. It is important to note that each year we bring this information to you in the month of September. However, we have not gone through our external audit at this point, so these numbers are preliminary and they are unaudited. My team and I have worked hard to make sure the information presented this evening is as accurate as possible, but as we go through the audit process over the next several weeks, these numbers could change slightly. Here you will see a breakdown of our actual revenue. Is that the right presentation?
Well, good catch.
The year-end results, yes. Thank you. Here you will see a breakdown of our actual revenue as compared to our adopted budget. Our actual revenue for the year is $153.2 million, which is approximately $2.9 million more than our adopted budget. This is mainly attributable to increased sales tax revenue of $4.3 million, which is offset by declines in other state revenue amounting to $1.5 million. Our expenditures and open encumbrances amount to $147.1 million for the year, and we have a small amount of prior year encumbrances that were carried forward that will be canceled. When you compare these amounts to our revenue, the amount available for a spending plan request is approximately $6 million. For your consideration this evening to include in an end-of-year spending plan request are the following items. First, 7 school buses to continue maintaining our bus replacement plan. To remain on schedule for fiscal year 23 with our smoothing plan, we will need to purchase 7 buses by the end of this year. At the start of this school year, we have 23 buses that are over 15 years old, and we had 22 buses with over 250,000 miles. The estimated cost for 7 buses is $945,000. Funding for the construction of the War Hill Auxiliary Gym and Emergency Shelter was approved as part of the fiscal year 22 CIP. However, in the current bid market, increased funding will be necessary in order to complete the project. The additional funds requested amount to $1.75 million. During fiscal year 22, the division had a threat and vulnerability assessment completed. As part of this assessment, specific recommendations to enhance the safety and security of the division's facilities were provided. The prioritized recommendations address both interior and exterior security needs of WJCC schools' buildings and campuses. Details are being provided in a joint closed session of Williamsburg City Council, James City County Board of Supervisors, and the school board. The amount of funding requested is $2.7 million. These items total $5.4 million, which leaves approximately $665,000 to return to the localities to support future capital improvement needs. We are grateful for your support of the plan, and we look forward to working with our funding partners to meet these needs. At this time, we'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Dr. Beers?
Yeah, just school bus replacements. Are we replacing those with diesel or electric?
They would be diesel buses.
The electric that we have there, they were part of that a grant study.
Yes, we got a grant to receive those electric buses.
Can we start to buy our own electric buses?
Yeah, we're actually considering that right now. And Mr. Snipes may want to provide some additional information on where we are in actually reviewing the current performance of the electric buses we have now. Mr. Snipes, do you want to add something on that?
I will try. Good afternoon. school board members. We've done a preliminary study of electric buses to determine their return on investment and how feasible they are to our fleet. At the present time, it doesn't look as if they provide any benefit to us. They are actually, they cost us a little bit more to maintain. The benefit comes with electric buses over time, where you are reducing your carbon footprint and some other things. Same thing we do with geothermal HVACs. So when we get some more information, and if credits continue to happen, it will be more affordable for us as the federal government provides more credits.
I think one of the issues is the length of time the electric bus runs. We have a very long county, and so for inner city buses, they work very, very well. But as the batteries on the buses become better, then they will be more useful to us as an organisation as well. So there's several things that I know we're looking at very, very closely right now.
Any other questions for Ms. Ewing? All right, well, thank you, Ms. Ewing. Thank you for your work.
Sure.
All right, we'll move on to item 6.2, review amendment to the 23 operating fund budget.
I'm going to hand over to the CFO again.
Thank you, Dr. Heron. This evening, I will be presenting to you a proposed budget amendment for the fiscal year 23 operating fund. As you know, our adopted operating budget was based on state revenue as included in Governor Northam's proposed budget from December 2021. The state budget was finalized in June after our budget adoption, and our state revenue allocation is slightly higher than anticipated. The changes from our adopted budget are outlined by state revenue category on this slide. The change in state revenue is a combination of changes from Governor Northam's introduced budget to the final budget adopted by the General Assembly. In the area of standards of quality, or SOQ revenue, the change is attributable to funding for reading specialists being provided as part of basic aid, as well as providing additional state support for funded SOQ support positions within basic aid that are subject to the support positions ratio cap. The decline in the incentive program area is related to a reduction in funding for the at-risk add-on payments as compared to Governor Northam's proposal. The compensation supplement also went into effect as of August 1st instead of July 1st, which resulted in a small decrease in this revenue stream. These changes are offset by an increase in the hold harmless payment related to the elimination of the grocery tax in January 2023 to also include an amount for reductions related to personal hygiene products. The decline in lottery-funded programs is related to the elimination of the early reading initiative expansion to 4th and 5th grade as was proposed in Governor Northam's budget. Overall, we are anticipating additional state revenue in the amount of $393,500 in the operating fund, which will amend our fiscal year 23 operating fund budget total to $160,298,500.
All right. Any questions for Ms. Ewing on this? Ms. Cook? Oh, I'm sorry. Did we cut you off, Ms. Ewing?
I just have a couple more slides.
You took a long pause, though.
Sorry.
So, okay, go ahead. I apologize. We'll wait.
Adjustments to the expenditure budget are also necessary to maintain a balanced budget. As part of the state budget, ARPA funds have been allocated to school divisions to provide a bonus payment later this year for SOQ funded positions, and school divisions are encouraged to use additional available funds to provide pandemic bonuses to all other eligible instructional and support positions. WJCC's allocation amounts to $1.1 million, which will be accounted for in our grants fund budget. The additional funding of $393,500 in our operating budget will support these payments so that all WJCC staff will receive a bonus. After factoring in the recommended expenditure adjustment to the instruction function, our expenditure budget will also total $160,298,500.
There's the screen. Ms. Cook?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I appreciate this very much, and this and the previous item, this is why you win awards, right? Because you're really amazing. So thank you. Your transparency and accuracy and amazing fiscal management's very much appreciated. So if I could just step back, and I think if I understood you correctly, the $393,500, which you're putting in instruction, was essentially to fill a hole for an unfunded mandate. Is that?
That is correct.
Okay, so
yes.
we got $393,000 more than unexpectedly because the state took a long time to figure out their budget. Turns out that's been taken by an unfunded mandate. But I still feel some sort of sense that this is found, albeit spent, money, and that we need, because of the unusual nature this year, we somehow need to circle back to our funders and just, because this is more money than we got. We asked them to fill a hole if the state came in under rather, and so now the state has come in over, although they've spent it for us, thank you. I still think we need to somehow communicate to them that we got more money, but we have to spend it. Does that make sense? I'm not being very articulate.
No, I get you completely, and I'm sure that this is not the first time we've been in this space. What's that look like in previous? Is this the first time in your experience?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead. All right. I'm amenable to
I don't know whether you just want to write a
Communication,
letter, but I don't want to ignore this
This is
because
the
I want
change.
to honor the fact that we did ask them to make us whole if it came in under. Now that it's come in over, at minimum, we should alert them.
Does the board understand what Ms. Cook is proposing and any issues with that? I don't see any, but, okay. Yeah, thank you, Ms. Cook.
We can work on a communication after the board votes at the next meeting.
That'd be great. Ms. Ordio?
Just ask, you probably said this, but, the 393 that has been allocated, where is it allocated towards?
It's going to go into the instruction function, and it would be utilized to make up the difference in these bonus payments. If you recall, in June, we paid bonuses to our staff, and if we were to use the same criteria at that time, those bonuses cost approximately $2 million. And so we're getting federal funds from the state of about $1.1 million. So in order to provide the bonuses to all staff, we're going to need to make up that difference.
Okay. Well, let's move on to 6.3, Grants Fund Budget Amendment.
This agenda item is to amend our fiscal year 23 grants fund budget to reflect additional funding that we've received. As we were just discussing, as part of the state budget approved in June 2022, federal ARPA funds were allocated to school divisions to provide bonus payments for SOQ funded positions. Our allocation is $1,131,369, which will be accounted for in the grants fund. In addition, we have been awarded a grant under ARPA for a school-based health workforce grant in the amount of $78,867. The funds will be used for an upgrade to our student information system to provide a direct query process to the Virginia Immunization Information System, so our school nurses will have access to the most accurate vaccination data. There are also funds to support professional development for our school nurses for national certification. With the addition of these grant funds, it will bring our total grant budget for this fiscal year to $17,829,736. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Was that an increase of 78,867?
Yes, sir.
Did I catch that? Okay. All right. Ms. Cook?
Mr. Chair, I'm actually going back to 6.02 and wondering if I should have stated my normal disclosure. It just occurred to me. So if I could just ask Ms. Aller to just, I don't have the language in front of me, but I'm an employee of the Williamsburg Health Foundation, which funds the SHIP program, but I have the ability to discuss the budget and public's interest in a fair and unbiased way, or something like that.
Thank you for taking care of that, Ms. Aller.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'm in the same situation. I don't have
It's
the
similar.
language in front of me either.
Yeah, it's similar.
Okay.
You feel like you can participate in these discussions in an unbiased manner, Ms. Hunley?
Yes.
All right, thank you. All right. Thank you, Ms. Ewing, for all of your hard work. I don't know how you keep it straight, especially with all the changes. It's dizzying for me, so thank you. Item 6.4, foundational literacy decodable text, RFP here.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Ford is here to present this item this evening, and I believe this is a grant-funded expense.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the board, and Dr. Herron. This afternoon, I am presenting the request for proposals for foundational literacy decodable texts and the recommendation to award the contract to the following companies: Just Right Reader, Benchmark, Express Readers, Great Minds, McGraw-Hill, Teacher Created Materials, and Whole Phonics. WJCC designed the request for proposals to identify providers of high-quality decodable fiction and nonfiction texts that may be used to support effective teaching and learning for any student who needs intervention in foundational literacy skills such as decoding, oral vocabulary development, fluency, and comprehension, as well as all learners in all classrooms in kindergarten through second grade. WJCC seeks supplemental curricular materials and approaches that are inclusive, relevant, explicitly supportive of students in need of additional intervention, and provide easy-to-understand resources for instructional staff, parents, and guardians. The decodable text will add to a wide variety of existing texts in our schools and provide additional supports for students to apply phonics skills and build confidence in their abilities to read full sentences and short stories. Members of the RFP committee included the Director of Elementary Curriculum and Instruction, the K-5 Literacy Coordinator, the Reading Recovery Literacy Teacher Leader, and an Elementary Reading Specialist. Proposals were evaluated on the following criteria: vendor qualifications, experiences, and references, demonstrated understanding of the statement of needs and an ability to meet the RFP requirements, functionality of curricular resources, proposed work plan that demonstrates the firm's ability to provide supporting professional development and training services, and cost. The RFP was written with the intent of awarding one contract to multiple vendors, providing WJCC the flexibility to enter into annual agreements for resources that support all learners. The initial contract will be a 2-year agreement with an annual opportunity to renew for 4 additional years. The cost for the initial purchase for the K-2 classrooms across our division, up to $250,000, has been allocated within the ESSER 3 grant. At this time, I am happy to answer any questions.
Hi, Ms. Hummel. Yes, Ms. Hummel.
What is decodable?
Decodable means it's a text. It's a text that is written around specific identified phonics skills that, as a teacher delivers phonics instruction on specific skills or features. For example, are control words, words that where O-R, A-R, I-R, E-R work together. That's a specific phonics feature. And so texts have been written around the specific phonics features so that students then have the opportunity to take what they may have learned in a more isolated approach and apply it to authentic text, where they are not only practicing how to decode those words, but then the ultimate emphasis is have they used that decoding to understand the story or the information in the case of a nonfiction text.
So our reading teachers identify deficits in a particular area, and then they can hone in.
We start with our screeners, such as the PALS assessment that's required of all of our K-2 students. And from there, as we understand what students need to learn with more specificity to features, that instruction can become more targeted, that small group instruction. So again, using the specific features, they're delivering instruction based on specific features, helping the children to understand how to decode and then encode words, and then apply that feature as they are reading authentic text or creating pieces of written communication.
Thanks for sharing the science of what you guys do.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Young?
Right. Good evening, and thank you for the presentation. Can you tell us what grade level this covers? Is this K through 2?
Yes, ma'am. This would be a purchase that would provide Every classroom teacher in our kindergarten, first, and second grade classrooms across the division with a kit of decodable text aligned to the features that are typical in the development of students in that age range.
Okay, that was one of my questions. So these are books, they're not
Yes, ma'am.
online?
No, ma'am, they're
Okay,
books.
and you said there's going to be enough sets for all of our teachers that are teaching it and need those resources.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Don't go home. They stay in the classroom.
That varies from teacher to teacher. If teachers feel that sending the books home with students so that their families get another opportunity to see the features that they're practicing and have the children celebrate what they're learning and share that story with their families, then we certainly would encourage that.
Okay.
We understand that there will be a certain amount of attrition over the course of the year, but we want our children to celebrate what they're learning with their families.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, Ms. Ford.
All right, thank you.
All right, we're going to move on to item 7.1. We've got 11 policies to
They're short.
work through. So thank you for being a part of this effort here. Policy 7.1, review retirement of policy IGB, credit for courses taught by high school special ed teachers.
Thank you. Dr. Brown is here to present this policy this evening.
Greetings, School Board Chair Dow, members of the board, and Dr. Heron. Policy IGB, credit for courses taught by high school special education teachers, is being brought forward to the board for consideration of retirement. Under the Every Student Succeeds Act and the Code of Virginia, students must be taught by properly licensed and endorsed teachers for the classes that they are assigned to teach. As such, policy IGB does not meet the requirement of this code. This policy was last revised on June 5th, 2001, as there is no corresponding VSBA policy. Additionally, the proposed retirement of policy IGB was sent to SEAC for review, and there have been no questions posed at this time. The policy recommendation will be an agenda item this Thursday at our first SEAC meeting for the 22-23 school year. Should there be any feedback from this Thursday's meeting, the information will be shared with the board prior to the next board meeting.
Fantastic. Thank you. Any questions? All right. Thank you, sir. Item 7.2, retirement of policy JFBD, magnet school programs.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dr. Worley is introducing this policy this evening.
Hi, good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board, and Dr. Heron. Tonight I'm bringing forward policy JFBD on magnet school programs. After our committee review, we are bringing this to the board for consideration of retirement. Our reasons to support the retirement of this policy are, number one, we do not have a model VSBA policy for magnet schools. Number two, we currently do not have any magnet schools in Williamsburg, James City County. And in doing our research, many divisions in the area do not have standalone policies for magnet schools, and school divisions with magnet programs incorporate language within other policies related to school attendance and or school admission to support magnet schools. With your consideration, we are recommending retiring this policy, and I'm happy to answer any questions at this time.
Ms. Ortego?
So, based on what you just said with language and other policies, this wouldn't preclude us from ever having one if we wanted one.
Correct. Yes.
It could be brought out of retirement.
We wouldn't need a
Or
stand.
just
You're
not
saying we
needed,
wouldn't
yeah.
need a
I
standalone.
think the language would be put in another policy.
Any other questions? Tough room. That was a joke, by the way. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
7.3, review revisions to policy KLB, public complaints about the curriculum or instructional materials.
I believe Ms. Ford's just returned again to talk about this policy. Thank you, Ms. Ford.
Yes. Good afternoon again, Mr. Chair, members of the board, and Dr. Heron. This afternoon we are revisiting the proposed revision for policy KLB. We propose using the language of VSBA option 2 in the revised policy with the exception of the phrase "and shall not be prescribed or removed because of partisan or doctrinal disapproval." Additionally, we recommend updating the reference to the Code of Virginia and adding the cross-references to the policies and regulations for IIAA and IIAB and the associated KLB documents.
spent a bit of time on this policy a few meetings back. And by the way, before I forget, Dr. Beers, thank you for filling in for me at our last meeting, at the last minute, by the way. But I do recall that we had a bit of conversation around that portion that is not being included at this point, and I think our policy committee came together and agreed that you could live without it.
Well, and I think that, and our lawyers said it wasn't necessary
Okay.
to have that phrase in it.
So you both agree and the lawyers concurred?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Well, it was Elizabeth Ewing. Is she,
Well,
is-
she's,
Lawyer.
With the SBA, yeah.
She-
so
yeah,
to be
she's something else.
specific, she
Yeah.
was the one.
Okay.
cool,
I'm
thank you.
satisfied. The board, okay, great. I think we have something we can support. Thank you, Ms. Ford.
Wonderful. Thank you.
7.4, review revisions to BBA school board powers and duties.
I believe the rest of these are school board policies.
Yeah, we'll look to Ms. Young or Ms. Hummel to lead off on these with 7.4.
I apologize, I do not have,
Oh, here, you want mine?
sheet.
Yeah, here. Oh, oh, man, okay, there it goes.
So I'm just looking at the red line, if everyone wants to look at the red line there. Not a whole lot of change other than capitalization. We added down at the very bottom of the first page, the school bus drivers to our surveys that we want to receive annually to identify critical shortages of teachers and administrative personnel by subject matter and school bus drivers, because that's been such an important part of our some of the problems we've run into this year, or last year. So anyway, that was our change. And if anyone has any questions.
Is there a process or procedure administratively that already includes school board, school bus drivers? Or do you now take this policy and create something new for school bus drivers?
I'll let Mr. Keever respond, but I believe this was a directive from EDUE.
It does come from VDOE, that's correct. So when asked, we have to be able to report out.
Okay, great, thank you.
Oh, yeah, that's the Virginia code piece that's referenced in here.
Fantastic. Anything else? Okay, we'll move on to 7.5, BBFA, Ms. Hummel.
This
Or
was
Ms.
the
Young.
one with the choice, right?
You want to take this one, Sandy, or?
Let me get there.
Oh, sorry, okay, I can take it, because this one's really easy. It's changing a uppercase B for board to a lowercase b, and then adding a cross-reference of GAH, school employee conflict of interests. And then, I think, crossing out the word sections, and then adding a new section reference under legal reference, if anyone has a question.
To extend on that just a tad bit, Ms. Hummel, additionally, during our conversation, you wanted us to ensure that the long form of the VSBA policy was also provided. So currently the board has a shortened version of the conflict of interest policy that is currently in place, and if we wanted to make a revision there, you see the revisions that would need to be made with the current version, but then also we included a red line version of the 10 or 15 page VSBA language around conflict of interest and member ethics for this board to have a discussion about which one
Oh, yeah.
best met the
I'm
need.
sorry, I remember. So if everyone goes to the section, it's
It-
Where is it?
There's one that says line numbers version 2.
Version 2, yeah. So fellow school board members, do you want it to be outlined to that extent? Or do you want the shorter version?
And I believe the regs would cover everything else, Mrs. Hummel, is that correct?
Yes,
Would be embedded in the policy.
the regs, yeah. But it's just if you wanted to actually spell it out.
So a list of how we might embarrass ourselves.
Correct, because seriously,
That could fit on 10 or 15 pages.
yeah, because
I'm making a list.
I've
I got 10,
definitely,
15 pages just made.
I've definitely run amiss of this, so.
I'm more comfortable with the short version, but willing to hear your thoughts on the longer version if you prefer everything delineated on.
Are there,
One
are
sheet.
there,
Yeah.
are there ramifications if someone on our board does something coming, that if we had a shorter policy versus a longer policy?
Would these regulations be found somewhere else?
They're linked to this policy, but they are regulations. They're not in policy.
I mean, it's not, I didn't see any problem with having a longer version because I think it's almost, it's part of, you're supposed to go through this board training and annually, you know, I mean, like it should be, is this also part of our SOP? I should know this, but is
Yeah.
it? Oh,
Yes,
it's
it
also
is.
in our SOP. So we go through the SOP annually.
Yeah.
We do that.
Mhm.
It is in there. So
Yeah.
maybe we don't have to have a long one if it's in our SOP and we're reviewing that annually.
I'm looking
anyway.
at line 231, prohibited gifts. I know that that's in our SOP. It's also, it's in state code.
Yeah, we have to go through the ethics training. I mean, we're probably covered. And then Miss Allar, our board clerk, can certainly keep us honest when we run afoul.
Okay.
But what's everyone's gut read on that? Do you?
I agree with Mr. Dell.
I'm happy with the longer version. It doesn't, I think that nothing is omitted, everything's included, and to have it available, I'm all right with that. I know it's longer, but it's better to have it in than not have it in, and which allows for misinterpretation or I don't know.
Yeah, I don't mind having it long either. I mean, I'm fine with it being long.
Ms. Hunley?
Long.
Ms. Hunley says long. Okay, let's keep it. Let's go with the long version.
Yeah,
Say
it
that
doesn't-
again, Michelle.
I don't think
It's gonna
it
hurt,
hurts.
yeah.
I
Okay.
like short policies.
Right.
So
but I don't think it hurts to be long for this.
my only concern, and I hate to add more effort or work to this, is if we have regulations in here that don't quite match up with our operating procedure. So do we know that? I don't feel like we do know that at this point.
But I think that's an annual reconciliation process, and thank you to our clerk who helps us with that. But so that's going to be coming before
Yep.
the board in January with a new member, and if there's any sunlight between this and that, it can be reconciled
Yep.
at that time.
Okay. Sounds good. I like it. I think we're good.
Just
Okay.
for clarity then, for our next meeting, we would have the long form version as the version the board would be looking to approve.
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Okay. Easy enough. Item 7.6, BCA, School Board Organizational Meeting.
So this is also really, really easy because we just took chairman and made it chair.
Okay.
Okay, and then we corrected our capitalization.
Lines 16 and 18, it will be changed to R. And the legal and cross-references will be updated.
Yeah. Well, and just, excuse me, Mr. Chair, just so you know, so I'm fine with changing it to chair, but formally it's Mr. Chair and Mr. Chairman and Madam Chairman, just formally. I mean, I'm fine shortening it to chair just to make it gender neutral or whatever, but Madam Chairman is actually the proper.
That's correct.
Madam Chairman.
Is that a parliamentarian thing?
I have no idea.
I don't think
Further
she would make it
arcane
up.
knowledge from.
Well, I mean, I learned it from Elizabeth Ewan, so, you know.
Okay, okay.
Okay, I don't see any issues with these revisions, but we've learned something. And I appreciate that. 7.7, Policy BCB, School Board Officers.
Yeah, it's just the same thing, change chairman to chair throughout the policy.
Okay.
And then lines 11 to 12 and 15 to 16, the VSBA recommended language added. And you can, and I don't have it in front of me, and then also line 13, the chair will serve as ex officio member of all committees of the board. We're extending your has not been current practice in the past.
No, ma'am.
No. So then, you, just because you're ex officio doesn't mean you have to attend everything, but then you do need to be added to the rosters to everything.
Yeah.
Right.
So, and to all the communications.
It's good to know.
Excellent.
All right.
Just add to your email inbox.
We just want to let you know that there's more meetings coming, that you may be able to attend in all your free time.
And then the third, that line, the chair has a vote on all matters before the school board, but does not have an additional vote as chair in case of a tie. That's never been an issue with our board, but evidently it must have been an issue with other boards. So that's why they
I've seen it personally, yeah.
have they, okay,
Really?
so that's why they added that.
Yep, very good. 7, 8, school board clerk. BCC.
Well, again, it was changing the S's and the B's, capitals to lowercase. In lines 10 and 11, language was added to clarify how the school board satisfies the bond requirement. In line 13 and 15, we replaced some stricken language with clearer VSBA phrasing. I'm reading from a cheat sheet, but you can look at the policy and see what they did. And then they added legal and cross-references. And one of the things it said that per VA code, Virginia Code 15.2-27.04, WJCC meets the bond requirements, being a part of the VA core self-insurance pool. So that was added. I'm gonna make sure that that doesn't get in trouble.
It won't be our fault.
Ouch.
Okay. All good with 7, 8? All right, we'll move on to 7, 9, policy BDDG, minutes.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the line, Miss Young, just the line numbers, and if everyone wants to look at that, it's taken instead of recorded, stripping the man from the chair, saying that we're going to keep these minutes in accordance or under the provisions of the Code of Virginia law. And then it actually outlines where we post our minutes.
Not paper any longer, but on the website.
Correct. Yeah. I'm just kind of going.
It's not easy flipping through these, I just
Yeah.
If someone requests the minutes and request them a paper form, we direct them to the website? Or do we, I'm sorry? Or to you, okay.
Yeah, then there were just some legal references and regulation references added.
And then lines 20 through 23 actually specify exactly, what is required in the minutes. So they don't need to be overly verbose. They just need to at least contain the facts that are, the data that's in lines 20 through 23.
Okay,
Is,
yes, sir.
is there a reason why
I can't hear you.
all the verbs
Dr.
in
Beers.
here are, oh, sorry, all the verbs in here are passive voice rather than active?
Talk to VSBA about that.
Okay. I always frowned on the passive voice. I just noticed that the whole thing it's using the passive voice, but I'm sorry, that's my background.
Yeah,
That's,
I'm with you.
okay.
I'm feeling that.
I'll let it go. I'll let it go.
710, policy BFC, policy adoption. You guys are playing ping pong. I think it's to
I
you,
know.
Miss Young.
It's
I'm sorry, this is not my machine.
Oh, I know.
Okay, first of all, it changed change title to subject. That was so important. And then there's in line 14.
Mrs. Young, could you direct your, thank you.
Oh, you caught me. Okay, in line 14, there's some additional verbiage. I have my own, thank you. Where it talked about that policies shall be developed and presented to the board by the superintendent or superintendent's designee. And present, that's Mr. Keever. And he's very good at what he does. In line 19, things are subject to change by revision by the superintendent. I think the word change was changed to revision. You go down to line 22. As long as the administration operates within the guidelines of policy adopted by the board, regulations shall be developed by or through the superintendent and are presented to the school board as information items. So that's what we're doing tonight.
And the policy committee does see value in reviewing policies every 5 years. I see that we're keeping that.
That's why you're going to have 10 or 11 every time.
And
Actually, it's a code requirement.
it is, okay, it's a code
Yes.
requirement. Good to know. Well, I appreciate your steadfast work in this effort too, I really do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want
Yeah,
to
I
put down?
have a question, just for my own curiosity. It says policies shall be developed and presented to the board by superintendent's designee. Is that solely the only way a policy can be developed and presented? Can a board member suggest a policy revision or a new policy?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah, I'm just curious, because it says policies shall be developed and presented to the board by the superintendent or designee. And I'm curious, can a board member suggest or request a policy be revised or propose a new one?
I mean, individually, I mean, as long as colleagues agree,
sure.
then yeah. So
Yeah.
then I guess then it would be in the superintendent's best interest to do that. So that's an interesting question because we use the policy committee actually. So I mean, recommend the and that's why it goes to consent agenda, right? It's discussion. It's coming from you as a recommendation, pops right to the consent agenda. So. I don't think that this is inconsistent with that, but it's a good question because we do use the policy committee as the presenter, albeit through superintendent and her staff.
Right.
And I agree with you, Ms. Cook, because as I look at this, it says shall be developed and presented, and you began with a consensus of the board wanting to move in a direction for policy, perhaps even creating a new policy. And we would lean on staff to create the language of such policy, bring it to the policy committee for review to be crafted, and I think it fits there without actually stating that the school board has a right to develop a policy direction or conception.
I do think that if somebody on the board, we would discuss it, and then, as you said, we would go to staff to develop it, and then they would also check with lawyers and things to make sure that we're in compliance with code. So I don't think it precludes the board from suggesting policies.
Okay.
So, and then there was a large section on the bottom here that talked about, unless otherwise specified in the policy, it added a bunch of verbiage about current copy, where these copies were. Current copy of all division policies and regulations are on the WJCC public site. I think that was an important addition so that the public would know where they could read policy. I just want to know how many people, I'd like a survey done, Dr. Heron, how many people are reading our policies. And this is also where it talks about the 5 years. So.
And just to clarify, the public site is via Board Docs public site on our website, access through our website.
Right. Yeah, thank you.
And then our final one is BHB. And that's really encouraging us to, school board members to do in-service activities. And so we added, this is taking language from the VSBA on 16 through 24 about FOIA training and conflict of interest training, and let me see, that the school board clerk will substantiate that school board members have gone through both FOIA and COIA, is that what? Conflict of interest training, and maintain those records in the clerk's office. we've got our alphabet, our, change in capitalization. We changed on line 32, the National School Board Association to just the Virginia School Board Association and other national organizations to keep it open as to what the replacement may or may not be for the NSBA.
Any issues with placing these 11 policies on our consent agenda for next meeting? No? Okay, I think we're able to do that with confidence. Thank you, guys, our policy committee, and all your hard work. Point 1, approval of personnel actions. Can I have a motion on that item, please?
Oh my God, Sandy.
Did I mess you up?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve personnel actions as presented.
Thank you, Ms. Ortego. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Hummel. I think, Hummel, thank you. Ms. Aller.
Mrs. Ortega.
Aye.
Mrs. Young.
Aye.
Dr. Beers.
Aye.
Ms. Cook.
Aye.
Ms. Hummel.
Aye.
Mrs. Hunley.
Aye.
Mr. Dowell.
Aye. Board member comments. Ms. Cook, would you like to go first?
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to hearken back to policy BFC, policy adoption, and Ms. Ortego's comment about school board members suggesting policies. And so based on our conversation earlier about adopting the agenda, I sincerely hope that the policy committee take up and grapple with to bring to the board a way to operationalize a supermajority for budget votes. I think there's a couple things to consider that I'd just like to put out there, but I do think we need to have something in writing. It's not Robert's rules, so there's going to have to be some sort of way to suspend the rules as part of that process. Also, I think adding clarity on which votes. I think tonight's agenda is a really good example where we talked about two different amendments for proposed agenda items around the operating budget for grants fund and for the operating budget. So which budgets, because we have multiple budgets within our operating budgets, and then also which votes within those budgets, because it's not uncommon for us to amend them. So somehow figuring out how to operationalize this this mandate and developing that, whether that's through SOP or policy or whatever, so that we're able to respond to it as necessary in December. So that is a request that I hope, Mr. Chair, you'll see other school board members are willing to consider that, but I think we have to grapple with that. And then along the same lines, I still feel a need to seek legal clarity on the contract, both with the process and also the jurisdiction. And so as a member of the Williamsburg School Board, I will be seeking legal clarity, and I'll keep you all posted, but I will be in touch with the Attorney General's office to seek legal clarity around how to proceed and whether or not that is in line with the Constitution. So thank you. That's all I have to say. Thanks.
Ms. Cook, thank you. Ms. Hummel?
Is me? I wanted to just say how happy I was to view late I was also busy on the commencement activities, but boy, how wonderful it was to just see a positive, somewhat normal return to the pre-pandemic kind of environment. I loved the article that was in the Virginia Gazette Daily Press, just talking about positive things with the school system, with happy teachers and happy children, and seeing all the smiles. It's just been a really pleasant change from the last 2 years to see happiness basically back in the school, and we don't take it for granted anymore. I think for many, many years we just took it for granted. It's a great start of the year, and I don't take it for granted anymore. So I just wanted to thank all of our new 169 teachers and our continuing teachers and our staff and administration and all the bus drivers. That's the other thing that seemed to go pretty well this year compared to some years in the past. So, Mr. Snipes, thank you for leading the charge there. Along with the contract for the city and the county, this is a delicate, we are what, one of two combined school districts in the state of Virginia, three. And it's just always a very delicate kind of dance between the two different, the city and the county. And I would like to feel like I am a school board member with this joint school system that has the same rights and the same responsibilities as my colleagues. So anything that kind of upends that is a little worrisome to me. So I just want, in my mind, I just want clarity as to why the contract included a supermajority, why something would change that's been working pretty well in the past. And I kind of agree. I'd like just clarity on how do we work with a supermajority and how do we operationalize it. So inquiring minds want to know. I want to be treated as an equal school board member, and somehow this does not make me an equal. So that's it.
Miss Young?
Can you come back to me
Sure,
in just
yeah.
a second?
Miss Ortico?
I don't have a lot of comments, just I think we want to reiterate that first week seemed to get off to a great start. Of course, we had a long 4-day weekend, so now this feels like the first day of school again today. But just want to echo Dr. Heron's message at convocation about gratitude. I think that's an excellent message to start the school year with. I think we do have a lot to be very grateful for as board, as division, as students and teachers and staff in our district. And I just want to reiterate that. Also, I know it's gone out in multiple newsletters and communications, but just want to reiterate that there are a lot of forms and new forms on our website under Back to School. If you go to the first page of the website and you hit Back to School, then there's a list of back to school forms. Some are required, some are optional, and several are new, including a library restriction process. And I just want to make sure that people are aware of that if they want it and know where to find it. Also, the free and reduced lunch forms are there, so that's also important and these are all in English and in Spanish, so hopefully that's easily findable for everyone who needs and wants them.
Thank you, Miss Ortigo. Miss Hundley?
Yes, I'm excited about two things for September. Hopefully, I saw the faces on the screen. I want to have our opportunities to get back into the schools. I love going to seeing the kids and the teachers. And I'm also looking forward to football season. I'm ready for some football. And can't wait to see some rematches, just even within our own high school. So it's going to be exciting.
Great. Thank you, Miss Hundley. Dr. Beers?
I really don't have much to say except to say that I too enjoyed seeing the smiling faces of students and teachers as they started the school year, and it made everybody, I think, sort of take a deep breath and get back to school and get back to work, get back to learning.
Yep. Miss Young? Yep.
Okay, yeah. First of all, I really enjoyed convocation. That was so much fun. I couldn't hear all of the people yelling, maybe, which was a good thing. But I enjoyed seeing the staffs looking excited and ready to start school, and I think that's a very positive note. In point of passing, I just want to encourage parents to remember that cell phones are a privilege, not a right. It's not a constitutional right. You will not find it in the Constitution, either in the United States or in Virginia, and that cell phone usage should be limited to emergency, if at all. And a lot of things can be planned in advance. We used to do it before cell phones, believe it or not. So you can be done, that can be done. And lastly, this board hasn't taken up the pandemic response that this board participated in. I would like us at some point to have an open discussion about that, especially in light of all of the things we're finding out about the mental health impact of the lockdowns, the learning loss that our students have experienced, and maybe looking forward, hopefully never, but maybe thinking about in the future how we would like to handle things, because it concerns me. I don't ever want to see another year like the last year where we had students who came back and didn't know what school was anymore. We are here to serve those students and to make their experience the best possible. And that's all I have to say, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Young. It really was a fantastic convocation, and I know that there was a lot of thought and intentionality that went into the theme and the approach to instilling gratitude within the division. So, and I took a lot away from it. I was really excited to be there. And interestingly enough, I think that amongst these board members, we're collecting videos of certain board members and their dancing techniques. So we'll be able to share those at another point. But yeah, to get up, to get moving, and to share with one another the value that we see within each other at all the rungs, up and down the rungs of the division, starting from the top. And I thank you guys for your leadership in that convocation. I value you as a board member, Ms. Hummel. I do. And if I can reach out to you this week and we can have a discussion, I'd like to have that. I would encourage any other board members that, you know, the inquiring minds want to know, perhaps do what I did, and maybe you already have, but, you know, I asked my supervisor, what were you guys thinking? What was the thought process around this? And I would just encourage you to reach out to your council member or your supervisor, as I did. There are certain things that I don't believe that we should be discussing in public, and this contract is one of those things. I'm excited to be with our funding partners, and this is a meeting item that we have coming up, was it Thursday, to discuss a lot of proactive measures that we're taking for the safety and security of our students and staff and faculty, our division leaders. And so really excited to be meeting with our funding partners in a closed meeting, in a closed session, as you can well imagine, to discuss some sensitive items, but to relay to those that are listening in the public. We've got a fantastic leadership here that really cares about every single person that steps in and out of our schools, and making every effort to stay ahead of the risks associated with just walking outside your own home and into a school building. So looking forward to meeting with our funding partners this Thursday, September 8th at 8:30. That is a closed session meeting at the James City County Rec Center, rooms A and B, at 8:30, if I didn't mention that. September 20th, closed session and regular meeting here, closed session at 5:45 at room 300, and then the regular meeting at James Blair Middle School gymnasium at 6:30, and then closed session and work session with action items on October 4th, 4 and 4:30 respectively, back here in room 300. Events I did skip over, but I'm coming back to those. SEAC Special Education Advisory Committee meeting on September 8th at 6:30. And that's going to be virtual and at the Rec Center. And then Policy Committee meeting at 8:30 a.m. on September 15th, room 108 here at the central office. And then the VSBA Legislative Advocacy Conference, I'll be there. Dr. Beers will be there. I think a few board members will be virtual. Saying all day? Okay. Virtual and at 990 Hilton Heights in Charlottesville. All right. and the agenda is set for our next meeting. With that, this meeting is adjourned.
I'll just